Shawn, come on. What are you going to do? What are you going to talk me to death? Huh? Shawn, face facts. You can't wrestle anymore. You're done. It's over. Your career in this ring, Shawn, it's finished. HBK is dead. And whether you like it or anybody else likes it, there's a new game in town. And Shawn, this time, I won't stop. You go through with this, I won't stop. I'll finish the job, Shawn. I will cripple your ass.
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And wherever you're listening to us at, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, that's one, and anything else that you're listening to us on.
Wherever you listen to podcasts, we're probably there. Unless you listen on YouTube, in which case we're not there yet.
Maybe coming soon. We'll see what happens. Either way, thank you for doing that. If you want to review us where you're at, that would be super appreciated. Thank you for that. Feel free to follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at Last Match Cast. If you want to email us, whether you want to tell us how awesome we are or how poorly we messed up from an episode you saw, please do that. Or if you have a match suggestion, please do that. You can email us as well at lastmatchstanding.com, at gmail.com.
We actually love hearing how bad we mess up.
Yeah, please do. That was, completely serious because we want to know. Because one, that tells us that you're listening. But more importantly, we want to be right.
It's personal highlight of my day being told that I'm an idiot.
You can also find us on Ranker, where as we go along over the course of this podcast, we will put our list together, but you have the opportunity to put your list together on Ranker, so totally find that as well. We would love to see the feedback there. Guys, I could not be more excited about today's match.
Thank you, everyone who voted on the Twitter poll.
Oh, yes.
For this absolute barnstormer of a match.
I'm just going to say this right now. Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler of all time. I don't care what kind of person makes me look like. I know he was a piece of shit in the 90s, but this Shawn Michaels is the best Shawn Michaels. I've cleaned my act up, and I'm going to have pretty much 4 to 5 star matches for the rest of my career. There
is, a quote towards the very end of this match, right after Shawn wins. Spoiler alert, by the way, where JR says, "A young man that's Hall of Fame bound." And it struck me so much because he was a Hall of Famer before he returned in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And then think of the classics he gave us after.
Oh, my favorite Shawn Michaels matches happened after he came back.
Right.
When we never thought we were getting him back. So just to imagine that for a second, this is a guy who we had already come to terms with. This is going to be a Hall of Famer, and we were satisfied with his career when he left in 1998. And he comes back and gives us his best work.
A second Hall of Fame career.
It is.
Right?
It really is.
He could be inducted twice, once for before and once for after.
Well, technically, he has been inducted twice.
That's true.
Very true.
SummerSlam 2002, Triple H versus Shawn Michaels in a non-sanctioned street fight. Or is it unsanctioned?
I think the official term is just unsanctioned match.
Yeah, I think they were verbally saying non-sanctioned, but in script they were using unsanctioned. In a street fight, this match goes 27 minutes and 50 seconds, which is beautiful. It's August 25th, 2002, from the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. And this is a show, first of all, that from top to bottom is pretty damn good.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
So SummerSlam 2002 is widely regarded as one of the greatest wrestling pay-per-views of all time, and I'll be right up there and say I'm one of the guys who's shouting it on the rooftops. It's one of the best.
and it's a match. It's a card that starts with Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle.
I mean,
Like as the opening match.
insane.
And this Shawn Michaels Triple H match is for me it's the pinnacle of this card. But it's arguable because some people believe that there are other matches that we potentially could get to that are even better than this one, and that speaks to the depth of this card for sure.
So the card is insane, but if we talk about Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, even outside of the scope of SummerSlam 2002, it's one of the greatest rivalries and greatest stories ever told in pro wrestling because the story is so relatable. This story is about jealousy between best friends and what best friends go through. I mean, we all fight with our best friends. That's why they're our best friends, because you go through those extremely difficult times and you're able to fight through, and that at the end of the day, they're still your best friend and you'll call them that. And you see that with Triple H and Shawn Michaels throughout their career.
Closer than a lot of brothers. I mean, you want to quote the promo, it sums it up. This is a story, last week we were able to talk about Trish and Lita and how relatable that rivalry was for such a long time, how you could relate to either one of those characters at any given point. And for Triple H and Shawn Michaels, I mean, it's got all the build in the world to give it legitimacy, and the story wrote itself. I mean, it wrote itself, but they were doing things that took it even one step further, and that's what gets us to SummerSlam, and it's brilliant. I just love it so much.
So, interesting fact as we get into the actual build-up to the match, this match was actually booked as a one-off for Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn couldn't do a lot, or at least that's what we thought before we saw this, but word on the street was, Shawn's injured. His back is done. He's not a professional wrestler anymore. So because of this, there weren't really a lot of matches leading up to this match. And even though he technically returns on the June 3rd, 2002 edition of Monday Night Raw, this match doesn't happen until, what was it?
That's August 25th.
That's how long he was around without taking a bump. Or, I mean, he may have taken a bump here and there, but he didn't have a match for several months because no one thought he could. So they really had to rely on his storytelling ability and his promo ability, which, let me tell you, Shawn Michaels is the guy you want to learn how to cut a promo from.
Nothing lacking there, that's for sure.
So Shawn is injured in a casket match against The Undertaker in 1998. It's a nasty, nasty back spot, and it leads to all sorts of issues for Shawn's back. In Paul, what was Shawn's? Was that his last match? What was Shawn's last match?
Oh, no. Shawn's last match was at WrestleMania 14 against Steve Austin.
Oh.
And it's a match that's very difficult to watch because he takes an Irish whip and just crumbles and is visibly in tears because he's in so much pain. He does the kip up spot in that match, and they zoom in on his face. His eyes are so bloodshot because he's just in agonizing pain. And I'm sitting there going why are you making this man compete?
Right.
I mean, I know he needs to pass the torch, but you're killing him right now.
And so I think about the back spot on the casket, and then I think about WrestleMania 14. Like you said, that's so hard to watch. And you can sort of tell once you've watched enough professional wrestling when someone's selling and when someone is genuinely in agony.
Oh, he goes to do the flare spot in that match, and he can't do it. He basically just does the front flip and hits the turnbuckle and then falls in the back of his head and crumbles.
I'm pretty sure the second half of the WrestleMania 14 match, he's holding the ropes.
He is.
The entire match.
He goes to kip up with the rope, and then he has to hold himself up with a rope. He can't even stand up. And
so it's difficult to watch. So at this point, Shawn had every intention to never wrestle again. He leaves the company. He's gone. But story goes that, whenever your heart is into something like pro wrestling, it never truly leaves you. So he starts up a wrestling school in South Texas, right? And he actually, he has a street fight or something, because he just couldn't stay away. You know how it is. After a few years, you're teaching these kids. You're not really taking bumps, but you're teaching them what to do. And then you feel like, okay, I could get in there and, do a little something. And so he has a little promotion that he runs, and he has a street fight in there. And so he feels like, okay, maybe I can do this. And whenever the decision was made, and I don't know if maybe one of you can get into like how exactly the decision came about, but he asked Triple H for a match because he wanted his son to see him wrestle. And that's why we got this match, which is so special. Unlike the whole Goldberg thing, but really, no. This is actually special.
Well, Shawn didn't pick up his son over his shoulders with no shirt on after this one.
But think about that though. So Shawn is out for 4 years with a serious career-ending, seemingly, back injury, and he has so much trust in Triple H that he goes to him and says, I think we can have a great match, and I want to do this for my son. How much trust you got to have in that guy?
I mean, like they said, that's his best friend. And Triple H, does some very nasty things in this match. And there's a point where you said it for the WrestleMania match. Is he selling or is he really hurt? There's at least 5 or 6 points in this match where I wanted to stop watching it because I was convinced that he was legitimately injured. And this is 2002.
So it became one of these things where if Shawn Michaels was going to come back and he was going to do this and he was going to do it for his son, it had to be perfect. It had to be the perfect storm. It had to be the perfect story. It had to be the perfect situation. And it had to be the perfect guy to work with. And that's why it was Triple H.
Absolutely. I mean, and this was the perfect storm. It was definitely something that you could argue was brewing from before he ever hurt his back. And the fact that we get it in 2002 at the height of the ruthless aggression era, on the same night as such greats as Brock Lesnar versus The Rock and Rob Van Dam in that amazing hardcore title, Intercontinental title match. I mean, there was just so many great things going on at this time in pro wrestling, so it was a real treat to get Shawn back here. But actually, Shawn returns on June 3rd, 2002, edition of Monday Night Raw, as Kevin Nash's surprise announcement of the newest member of NWO. Do y'all remember the wonderful NWO run on Monday Night Raw?
Oh, I
2002.
do. I was watching it. I had no idea who any of the people involved were.
So one of my favorite parts about this Triple H Shawn Michaels match is the build, but that is because I selectively forget the NWO part of it, like that part before where Landon, you're going to get into it for a second, but I just pretend that doesn't happen. So, which is what the WWE
for good
reason. They pretended it didn't happen
for good reason.
Completely ignore it. They'd have you believe that Shawn's return was when Triple H called him out for a DX reunion.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah. So what actually happens though is he comes back because he's the newest guy in NWO, and the next week, Shawn cuts a classic heel promo as only he can, because in the newer Shawn Michaels stuff, you see a lot of face Shawn Michaels. You see heel a little bit here and there, but it's majority, like 80-85% face stuff. Go back if you haven't seen it and watch heel Shawn Michaels from earlier in his career, because he can cut a heel promo. And so in this one, as an NWO member, he says, it's you, the fans, that determine where we go as an organization. So it was really you fans that dumped me and ran to Stone Cold Steve Austin like a cheap nickel and dime prostitute runs to a millionaire. So that begs the question, why am I here? It's sure as hell not to wrestle. I've done that for you once before, and I'm sure as hell not going to make that mistake again.
I forgot about this promo. Oh my gosh.
That promo.
Gold.
Nonetheless, they decided to put this huge promotional machine behind Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Stone Cold had no problem stealing my spotlight.
No.
But I'm not here to place blame on Stone Cold Steve Austin. As Vince McMahon always says, it's you, the fans of this company, that determine where we go as an organization. So it was really you fans that dumped me and ran to Stone Cold Steve Austin like a cheap nickel and dime prostitute runs to a millionaire.
Whoa, that was wrong. Oh, man.
So that begs the question, why am I here?
And exactly.
I can assure you, I'm not here to wrestle. I did that for you once. Rest assured, I will never, ever make that mistake again.
We gave it all for the fans.
But wow, it's really, really good stuff. And to hear that, as a fan who was waiting on Shawn Michaels to come back, who was hoping beyond hope that maybe one day we'll finally get Shawn Michaels back, and that's what you get. That's tough to hear.
He called me a prostitute. How dare him?
He did a great job. And so he goes on to thank Kevin Nash for standing by his side. Then NWO comes out, and it's like the rest of the members of NWO. So it's Kevin Nash. At this time, it's Kevin Nash, X-Pac, Big Show, and Booker T, which is an odd mix
It is.
of people
But
in the ring.
it's all kind of coming back to me now, yes.
Yeah. That is until HBK kicks Booker T's heads off
Yeah.
and kicks him out of NWO. And
Yeah,
then there's this whole NWO versus Booker T thing.
He literally kicks him out of the group.
He literally kicks him out of the group. So he says to Booker T, "You tried to steal the spotlight from NWO, just like Steve Austin stole it from me. And just like The Rock tries to steal it from Hunter."
Oh.
Which is the first little seed we get planted for this match. And I think that's so interesting because it's literally the second week he's back, and it's 2 months before the match ever happens. But they're thinking about it. They know it's coming.
Well, that same episode of Raw, like one of the bookends of that show was NWO's in the backstage area. Triple H walks up to him like, "What are you doing back here, Hunter?" And like Kevin Nash again says, "Oh man, what's gonna happen?" And they all did the 2 sweet handshake together, and that's how the show ended.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. And so, and I love the little Easter eggs that NWO drops, like the little Easter eggs, like callbacks to WCW. I don't know if y'all would have noticed this because it's so tiny. So there's a backstage segment when X-Pac calls Big Show G-Money. and if you didn't watch WCW, you have no idea what the hell that means. But Big Show in WCW was the Giant. Mm-hmm. And so it's just these little things that they just kind of throw in there, kind of like DX style, just like these little one-liners. So HBK plays out the NWA angle for a few weeks, doing strictly promo work, great promo work. But at King of the Ring in 2002, we have the interaction between HBK and Triple H for the first time, and it's an intense stare down to start. And then they start hugging it out, and it's just like, what's up? So good to see you. And then on the July 1st episode of Raw, Shawn Michaels announces there's another member who's going to be joining NWO, and it's going to be none other than Triple H. And fans go crazy. People are like, what? Triple H is a huge face right now. There's no way he's joining you. The next week, HBK goes on to say that they haven't heard a reply from Triple H. That offer, was a very generous offer that was extended last week. So he talks about the long history that they share, how they were family. But now, instead of standing with his brothers, Triple H is standing with all of the fans. So he gives Triple H an ultimatum. And he says, you're either with the NWO or you're against the NWO. So on the July, okay, well, and this is where it gets a little weird. So on the next week of Raw is kind of like a black hole.
That's one way of describing it.
Can you guys explain to me how we go from heel Shawn Michaels as an NWO member with a face Triple H to the script immediately flips, and it's as if none of it ever happened?
Okay, so the following week on Raw, there is a 10-man tag match that it was unannounced. The show starts, NWO versus WWE. And immediately Kevin Nash tears both of his quads. And the match, they cut to commercial. When they come back from commercial, the match just kind of ends. Next week, NWO, I've never heard of that. They don't exist anymore. They're just gone. They're just gone. They gone.
All right.
To be fair, Kevin Nash is hurt. X-Pac had to go to rehab because we had, and then the Big Show doesn't want to be a wrestler anymore. And so now you just have Shawn Michaels and Triple H are the only two guys from this entire angle that are left. Because at this point, Hulk Hogan's going to SmackDown. He's no longer Hollywood. Now he's just Hulk Hogan again, red and yellow. And Scott Hall didn't want to do business because it drove him back to be an alcoholic. So like this entire angle that's been building since February is just gone. But you're right. Black hole, it vanishes overnight. It's gone. They pretend it never happened. Because then, like within 2 to 3 weeks after this happening, we get the DX revival for 5 minutes. And if you watch the promo package for this match, they'd have you believe that's where this started. It didn't start back in June. It started literally a month before this show. Like the month of June no longer exists. We immediately go into July.
So it is like they almost want you to forget about all the NWO stuff, but I implore you to not, because there were so many great little subtle setups that happened that they knew this was coming. This may not have been how originally it was intended to break out, but I think it was still, despite the confusion, an excellent, excellent build.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. And even, I'm real curious. It's going to be one of those what ifs. What if that doesn't happen to Nash and all that stuff? How do we get to this match? How does that look? Is it going to be a heel Shawn when he competes for the first time? But instead, this is what we get. We get Triple H coming to Raw to reunite D-Generation X. Shawn Michaels comes out, and you've seen it, right? They do the whole shtick. Let's get ready to suck it. Triple H, Pedigree, Shawn Michaels.
The safest pedigree of all time, might I add.
It's very soft. But
he immediately lets him go and just kind of jumps 2 feet away from him.
Yeah.
Which is so ironic when you think about the match we get.
Right.
Well, I
Right.
think
It was not a sign of things to come.
at that point they weren't sure what kind of bump Shawn could take, and I think Triple H was very, very hesitant to land on Shawn's back.
Right.
I think he was just like, if I land on his back, I'm going to hurt him. I'm 270 pounds. I will crush him. So that's why he jumped so far back, in my opinion.
So from there we get a couple of pretty intense weeks between there and SummerSlam, and I mean really intense, right? So Shawn Michaels, Triple H comes out and he's basically like, Shawn Michaels was never my brother. I used Shawn Michaels to get to the top, just like Shawn used me to stay at the top.
I love that.
Right? Which
That's like the best line.
Beautiful line.
And that sums up this rivalry so well.
It's really good. But then Shawn Michaels gets his head thrown through a car window.
So before we get there, Triple H says, so you just couldn't give up the spotlight. Now I'm the showstopper. I'm the icon, and your career is over. And he goes on to sell how bad Shawn's back is, which starts laying the groundwork already for the match that we get weeks from now. Because they don't drop the fact that Shawn isn't wrestling because of his back, and that is a very important storytelling device. And so Triple H offers a counter ultimatum here, which is interesting. That 2 weeks prior, Shawn's offering the ultimatum as the heel,
right.
And now Triple H is offering the ultimatum as the heel. And so he has option 1: listen to your pride and try to fight me. Or option 2, put your pride aside and accept your role, accept your disabilities, and accept being my manager. Then we have a crew member pull Triple H aside.
Like runs into the ring to tell him, and like, what's going on here, folks? We don't understand what's happening. They just run to the back. They go to commercial. Commercial comes back. Shawn is in the bloody mess. There's broken glass everywhere, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what happened here?" And then Triple H and me like, "Oops, somebody attacked my friend. Somebody attacked my brother. Shawn, I'm gonna find out who did this to you." He immediately turns face.
Were you going to mention Eric Bischoff?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Eric Bischoff shows up at the scene. Triple H is distraught at what happened. And Eric has this smug grin on his face and says, "Wow, I heard you weren't friends anymore, but man." And do you remember how Triple H responds? Let's listen. And so because you're not listening to the sound clip, you think I did this? Fuck you. It's so jarring to hear something like that come out of his mouth, because as the viewer, you're thinking, I kind of thought he did do it, but maybe not.
He sells it so well that he did not do this.
I mean, Oscar of the Year.
It's really good.
Watching the build package, I was like, wait a minute, I thought he did do that. And I was like, a minute later, oh, that son of a bitch.
And I love that because it leads to the only good interview via satellite that WWE has ever done. Because you've got Triple H in the ring and you've got Shawn Michaels from the wheelchair, right? And he's sitting in that chair and he's in the production and
one of his eyes is just like red.
Oh yeah, he looks like
pop blood
shit.
vessels in the eye. He's got like this really nasty cut above it on his forehead, underneath the eye. It's
great makeup work.
Oh my God! It's like for a split second, I'm like, wait, did somebody just jump him in the parking lot and they wrote it into the story? Because it looks like that's what he looked like after he got beaten up in Syracuse in '95. That's what I thought of immediately.
And this segment builds on itself, and Triple H is like, Shawn, I'm going to find out who did this to you. You know, they're going to pay, that sort of thing. And then Shawn sort of inches along, like, hey, actually it's super convenient. They had some video footage in the back right then.
When they show us the video footage, though, you can see Shawn, but you can't see his assailant. It's very, very pixelated. And that's where the segment kind of ends. But it's the next week where we see the undoctored footage where you see Triple H clear as day. And that's when I went personally going, that no good son of a bitch. I believed him.
Right.
Nick Patrick has nothing to do with this match. What are you talking about?
The second they clear up the pixels, right, for the video footage, you see Triple H's face, and then Shawn, it was you, Hunter. And, Hunter, you're damn right it was.
Yeah, you're goddamn right it was me.
If go back and watch this spot, because the change in Triple H's demeanor at this moment is absolutely beautiful, and it cements his role as Cerebral Assassin. For me, this is the birth of the Triple H that I know and love, the best heel in the business.
I agree. It's not long after this that we get Evolution.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Shawn says, that's okay. The doctors say I'll be healed by, say, SummerSlam, right? And that's when the match is set. But the match will never happen. That match will never happen. And then Triple H, but it will happen, Eric, when he's talking to Bischoff in the back about it. And so we get this non-sanctioned street fight at SummerSlam 2002.
I just love the, I'll see you at SummerSlam.
You can't wrestle anymore.
What's so interesting is at this point in his career, no one was really expecting him to do much in there. They said, okay, well, he's going to throw a couple punches, and he's going to do a super kick, and that's going to be the match. This is his first match back in how long?
1,609 days.
How can you expect somebody to go out there after not being in a ring
for 4.5 years
and put on the type of match we get at SummerSlam 2002.
27 minutes worth. Like, full-blown main event. Looked like he didn't skip a beat.
So I think this makes this the longest match so far that we've reviewed. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's going to take a while for us to get one that's longer than that, probably. But that sort of paints the picture for you guys, right? So SummerSlam 2002, Long Island, New York. We've got JR and King on commentary with who else but Earl Hebner as the referee for this match.
Thank God we have Earl Hebner for this match.
Who basically plays Triple H's arch nemesis
man.
for like a decade.
I love
feels
it.
Like,
I love
right?
it.
It's the best.
I think Earl might be one of my favorite parts of this match.
That's so good.
He does such a good job. That man never gets any respect for how much he can sell. Like that a match is that what you're watching is not scripted. This is real. And Earl makes me feel that every time I watch this.
Absolutely.
As they go into the promo, JR says, "This is about pride and passion. This is about evilness and ego." And from the jump, they sell and they talk about how Triple H doesn't have a heart, how he has no soul, what's he doing, and how Shawn Michaels is on the comeback ride of the century, right? But they have to make their entrances, and I love their entrances so much because the story is told completely in the 5 minutes of entrances.
Oh, it absolutely is. And the story is even told through their attire. Shawn
Someone has to
Michaels.
bring it up.
Shawn Michaels is wearing a Philippians 4:15 shirt. And if you don't know, Philippians 4:15 is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's who Shawn Michaels was. Over those 4 years, he found God. He was this country boy. And guess what? He was the country boy for 4 years. Well, guess what Shawn Michaels wears out to the ring?
He wears his cowboy boots.
Jeans and boots.
Jeans and boots the whole match. And it's just part of that storytelling as a constant reminder that Shawn hasn't done this in 4.5 years. This is not Shawn Michaels the wrestler.
This is not
match.
the sexy boy. This is not the heartbreak kid, that you once knew. This is someone brand new. And this is someone that's changed completely. And him wearing that shirt out to the ring, it's one of the lasting images that I take from this match. During his entrance, when he's got all the confetti in the world that's ever been invented.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's insane. There are two things that stand out to me.
Was it confetti or was it? I thought it was sparkle, like sparkle Randy Orton pyro.
He got both.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he got the confetti
he had
going
like
up.
confetti cannons that shot up as the sparks went off.
Gotcha.
And then in the
I
ring,
figured that would catch
yeah.
the confetti on fire, but okay.
I think it was all plastic
Well, and-
confetti. It
That's
was
fair.
It was like shiny plastic.
That's fair. Okay, we're spending 3 minutes on confetti.
It's fine.
Sorry.
There are two things that stick out to me during his entrance. One of them, besides the shirt, one of them is that they mentioned that he is the first Grand Slam champion in WWE history. The reason that's important is because during Triple H's entrance, they say Triple H is the second Grand Slam champion in WWE history.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm getting chills thinking about it.
That-
Awesome.
Spencer, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, awesome, right? So I'm going to give you a quote from JR for Shawn's entrance and then one from King for Triple H's entrance, right? Because both of them in this match are prime JR and King, and I don't know if I have a match that I prefer them in. Like, this might be my favorite match between the two of them for JR and King. But JR says during Shawn's entrance, he says, "I always hoped that Shawn Michaels would get back in the ring one more time, and that's what we're seeing here. So my personal dream has come true. But I pray this is not a mistake that Michaels will regret, that his family will regret for the rest of his natural life."
So good.
On the flip side,
So good.
on the flip side, during Triple H's entrance, King says, "There are two things you don't like about Triple H. That's his face. Because only a two-faced individual would be able to stand and put his arm around Shawn Michaels, tell the world that he's Shawn Michaels' best friend, and then take Shawn Michaels' head and run it right through a car window."
And so what I love about that is that it's telling the story with the King flavor. And actually, you know who that reminds me of? That sounds like a Bobby Heenan line.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was thinking when I first heard it. Like somebody gave this man some notes.
and we'll see JR's quote about the family may live to regret. That's that stays in the back of his mind throughout this whole match.
It's a very chilling line.
And he continues to talk about Shawn's family and their reaction, and it's JR's commentary and King's too elevate this match to a level beyond what it already was at.
Agreed. Completely agreed. They just, I mean, it's iconic stuff. It just is.
What I love most about Triple H's entrance is this is the beginning of Gaston era Triple H. Because if you watch the entire build, this is like old with the beard, with the beard, and just like the black leather. This is when he comes out, clean shaven, feathered hair, and he would look like this for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Clean shaven, feathered hair, and then cuts promos, sunglasses, and a suit. I know people hate that version of Triple H, but I love that version of Triple H because he's one of the best villains we've had in a long time. Fight me.
So you know what else I love? And this not necessarily has to do with the match itself, but I love the set for SummerSlam 2002.
I do too.
It's so good. I miss whenever we would have a different set for every pay-per-view. That was just, I'm sure it broke the bank, but I really appreciated it.
But it made him feel more important.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a part. I mean, that's a part of it. You know, like you take that away, and now they all sort of blend together.
They look like Raw and SmackDown.
Every single pay-per-view felt like a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like think about the Backlash little like crab arms. Like it was
Yeah,
like the coolest thing.
That was my
to,
favorite set as a
They
kid.
had to navigate the crab arms to get to the like. It was just cool.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get that anymore.
Nope.
Okay, I get one every episode. That's my one complaint about current day product. Okay, moving on.
So let's get to the match itself. So something that I love is that immediately you get personality.
Oh, yeah.
You get Shawn Michaels laying on the top rope while Triple H gets into the ring, acting like this is not a big deal at all when everyone is holding their breath with what's about to happen. And then the second Triple H gets in the ring, Shawn walks up to him. You think there's going to be a big, intense stare down.
Nope.
But Shawn throws the shirt with the scripture on it in Hunter's face. I mean, come on. The symbolism, you could go on for days about that moment right there.
And how about the foreshadowing about... Okay, well, I say foreshadowing. It might not be heavy foreshadowing, but I think it's pretty cool that it'll be several years later, but he comes down from the rafters at WrestleMania. Was it 25 or 26 against
25.
The Undertaker?
25, yeah.
And so it's clear that this is a part of Shawn Michaels that we'll see. And, you know, he wears the cross all the time. He's, you know, it's kind of a part. It's on his T-shirts.
It's in a lot of his tight designs.
Yep.
For the rest of the way.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, we have him tag teaming with God himself at one point. I mean, it's a big deal.
Did he just tell God to get jiggy with it?
Oh, my God.
We will definitely be talking about that match at some point.
That sounds like oh, no. So this match from the start is intense. And at the very beginning, you see that Shawn Michaels is in shape.
Oh, yeah. I would say one of my favorite things about this match is that they kind of play to the audience's perception of what Shawn can do. Because I have this kind of match split into 4 sections. Most of the first, I call it the first act, it's a brawl. They're fighting. So the first 5-10 minutes of this match is just Shawn basically out-punching Triple H.
That is a great way to say that. I'm so glad you set it up that way because you're absolutely right.
To be fair, it took me 2-3 watches to kind of see this. But the first time I watched it, I don't remember this being a fight. I remember it being like a knockdown, drag-out brawl. I rewatched it. I'm like, they're playing to audience perception here because the word on the street is that Shawn couldn't go anymore.
Exactly.
So they punch each other for 10 minutes before they start wrestling.
And it starts off so safe. You see it and you kind of think, okay, we are getting the punch, kick, Shawn Michaels. And you're fine with that.
Right.
Because
yeah.
you get
You're
Shawn
good.
Michaels back in the
we'll
ring.
take whatever we
and
can
then
get.
Triple H does a vicious backbreaker out of nowhere. Just boom. And Shawn crumples to the ground like he just had a stroke. He's twitching. Earl is in Shawn's face like, oh, my God, are you okay? JR and King are like, oh, my God, he may have re-broken Shawn's injured back.
And so it's the backbreakers, and the Irish whips to the corner, where Shawn flies like almost halfway across the ring after hitting the corner.
You can hear a pin drop almost when this is happening in the arena, right? Because
There
people
is-
are holding their breath watching Shawn take
There
this
is an
beating.
audible
Right.
every time he does it. He does it 3 separate occasions.
And the whole time, JR is selling the hell out of it.
I like to think that JR is actually crying.
Well, he says, I don't think Shawn Michaels even knows how much pain his back can take. It never fully heals. From what I hear, it never fully heals, and you damn sure don't get in the ring with an athlete like Triple H.
Yeah.
No. But one of my favorite moments is actually backing up a little bit. You're right. They play it safe until Shawn does a suicide dive within
Oh my God,
60
yes.
seconds.
Right.
But then they go back to playing it safe. It's forearm shots, knees to the stomach, throw Triple H into the barricade. They keep it very safe. But the second Triple H gets that backbreaker and he takes over, and it is hard to watch.
And it's not too long into the match until there's a chair involved. And Shawn takes a chair shot to the back.
To the lower back.
And at one point, there's a pinfall, right? And Shawn kicks out. And I think it's Lawler's that says, I'm wondering if Shawn is doing the right thing by kicking out here.
Right. And so they
Oh,
get
yeah.
to this point where the announcer's like rooting like against Shawn to try. It's something that I'll never see, right? They're like basically telling Shawn to give up. They don't want to see him get hurt. So this is the part where the audience is just totally hushed. And JR says they know, talking about the audience, they know the danger that Shawn Michaels is in, but Shawn Michaels' heart maybe doesn't know it because it's still beating.
I got goosebumps right there.
Oh, and then there's this great moment where we get just Triple H he does 2 hard Irish whips in a turnbuckle, and then he does the DX crotch chop,
Oh.
followed by an elbow drop to the lower back. And then we start getting asshole chants.
And this is when you start to hate Triple H. The back damage was enough, but the DX chop.
he does the crotch chop. That
I-
son of a bitch.
I guarantee you, no one in that arena or no one watching at home hated Triple H more than Earl Hebner.
I thought you were about to say than you, and I was like, I'll fight you on that. But you're absolutely right. Earl Hebner. Oh man.
Earl Hebner takes no shit in this match.
No, he does not.
Well,
I'm so glad you brought this up.
So I want to get there, but a couple of things happen before Earl Hebner hits peak Earl Hebner. Right, peak Earl comes in this match, but Shawn gets DDT'd onto a chair and it gets busted open, and we're still pretty early on in the match, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like 5 minutes.
And then this is when Earl starts to really pick it up. Triple H does an abdominal stretch to Shawn, but then he holds onto the rope while it does it to really stretch that back of
and
Shawn
it's no
Michaels.
disqualifications.
There's
Unfinished
nothing.
match.
There's nothing Earl can do. Earl is
But
just
he
there
is
to
yelling
call.
at him. He is yelling at Triple H. He is just, he's just so pissed off about it.
Oh, I've got
Earl is every wrestling fan who wishes they could have been in there yelling at Triple H. And he
Oh.
gives us that.
I've got some Earl quotes here.
He says, "You're gonna break his goddamn back." That's what he yells at Triple H
Oh,
in that
yeah.
moment.
And then Triple H responds by taking off Shawn's belt and whipping him with it. Then he grabs the belt buckle, that giant Texas belt buckle, and punches Shawn, who just got his face busted open. And then he punched him in the forehead with it. And Earl is just bright red veins popping out like, knock it off, damn it. I'm sick of this. You end this match right now. God damn it. And you could just hear the passion in his voice. And then you hear the passion in JR's voice. And then you hear the passion in King's voice, who shuts the fuck up and calls this match. This is the era where Jerry Lawler was there to tell jokes and make fun of people. He calms down and he calls this match, and I love him for it.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. But you're right. It's in this moment where Triple H goes and gets the sledgehammer. And that's when Earl's, I'm sick of everything. I'm sick of the hammer. I'm sick of,
he stops him from using the
he
hammer.
stops him from using the hammer.
Triple H shoves Earl on the ropes. Earl bounces up and shoves Triple H back. And the crowd goes wild. And they do not calm down after that happens.
No, they are on a 10 the rest of the way.
Oh.
But then you get the backbreaker onto the chair.
And once again, like I said, Shawn sells like a stroke victim when he hits that chair.
He does. And JR says, quick count him, Earl. When
Yeah,
when
he's
they
just
pin
like,
him.
he just says, just give him a quick count and end this.
So the backbreaker onto the chair was so vicious that the chair bends, and Triple H decides, I'm not finished with this chair.
Nope. He bends it back.
He bends it back.
We got a great line from JR. He says, Triple H is an executioner with a PhD in torture.
And he really does have a PhD in torture. He is so smart in this match.
Oh, it's
There's
incredible.
one moment where Shawn Michaels is on the top rope, and Triple H is like groggy and realizes, I can't quite make it to him to push him off. So he pushes Earl Hebner, who then hits the ropes, and so Shawn falls down.
And then he bends forward.
And that's when you get the chair
And
shot.
Triple H hits him in the lower back with the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just flops off like a dead fish.
Absolute genius match building. by
And
Triple H in
we
this
get
match.
another beautiful JR line. Triple H hates Shawn Michaels. Triple H hates our fans. He hates everyone but himself. What an evil egotist that is Triple H.
I feel like, I don't want this to turn into, we're just telling you what the commentary of this match was, but my God, it's so good
It
that
is.
it has to be brought up. Like, these lines have to be brought up.
This is hands down the best commentary we've heard so far.
Oh, beyond. And so after the backbreaker, after that, JR says something else. He says, after HBK kicks out, he says, the will to win, or is it the will to survive? Because that's what it looks like you're watching at some point. It looks like you're not... the thought of Shawn Michaels winning this match is long gone.
Oh,
it is
yeah.
long out the window.
This-
As you are watching, hoping that he can walk when this match is over.
Well, that's when we get the fast count call. And then when he kicks out of that pinfall, JR once again, Shawn Michaels refuses to die. This may be his last match, but he refuses to quit.
And the HBK chants were
they're
so
deafening.
loud. So we get to hear the commentary, and we know how much that's elevating the match. But you can tell, even if you didn't have commentary, for every person sitting in there, they knew that they were watching a very, very special moment.
Oh yeah, you
Absolutely.
can watch this match with the commentary muted and just listen to the crowd, and you can
and
get
still love
you
it.
can still feel
Please don't,
everything.
though, because the commentary's so
Yeah,
good.
it's so good. Please don't pass it up.
But you could. That's how good this match is.
And
Completely
I
agree.
almost feel like Triple H heard JR say, "Just give him a fast count and end this."
I was right there with him.
Because Triple H, he gets frustrated. You can just see the frustration on his face. He's like, "Well, God damn it, he won't quit."
I have never been more happy that Triple H's finishing move was the pedigree, because it's not a back spot.
No.
Good point.
Well, he goes for
Good
the pedigree
point.
onto the chair, and Shawn Michaels hits him with a low blow.
So this is a match that just about, Shawn Michaels has the quick flurry in the beginning, but for the most part of this match, it's been a slow torture of Shawn Michaels'
Oh,
back
yeah,
until this moment when Shawn takes his first real control. He hits him with the low blow, and then the sweet chin music into the chair.
Into the
the
chair.
face, where JR says, the chair went back into the face of the game. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
And I'm going to say this right now. Triple H is one of the best bleeders in the business.
Oh, he looks
because
so
when he
gross.
gets up, there's so much blood in his face. And to be honest, the fact that he has long blonde hair makes it even better because
Oh,
the
yeah.
blood gets in his
The
hair.
Ric Flair effect.
Oh, absolutely. So I actually loved this. There's this beautiful spot. So have you ever? How many matches can you think of where you saw color on both sides?
In WWE, not that many. to be
Very
honest.
Few and far between.
Very few. And I'm thinking maybe this might be why. Because there's a comedic spot in this match that I don't think was intended to be comedic, but I was like rolling. They do what I'd like to call the zombie spot. And both men have color, and so they know they have color, so they have to look a little groggy. And so they're standing up, and they're a little bit drunk, and both of them are just like sliding side by side. And I'm just like, okay, like who's eating Earl? Like, I swear they look like zombies. It's so funny.
I'm actually really happy you did that because it kind of lowered the mood a little bit. But I have written here, this is where I say act number 3 starts. Act number 2 started with the backbreaker. I think act number 3 starts with the sweet chin music. And Hunter, when he gets up and he's just like trying to clear the cobwebs. He's bleeding and he's just trying to catch his breath.
Every time Triple H looks like that, the only thing that pops in my head is JR talking about his equilibrium. That is the
Well, I must
only
say
thing that
this-
pops in my head
well,
every single time.
as you recall, during the street fight between Cactus Jack, there's the Triple H is bleeding like a horse. And when he's doing that, he looks like a horse chewing on the ring.
Maybe that's why he said that, because I still
maybe.
don't know why he said bleeding like a horse.
Well, he
forgot we
looks
talked
and
about
sounds
that.
like a horse when he
Oh,
does
man.
this. And then Shawn Michaels goes for it, flying forearm, and then he kips up,
And the crowd,
loses it
the
again.
roof comes off of that
The
place.
kip up at that point was the largest pop in the match.
And then Shawn just starts shaking. He is like shaking. He's got the knees are going. I'm mimicking it right now so my voice sounds funny. He starts shaking, and then he gets a backdrop onto the chair.
Not before we get a Jason Giambi reference. By the way,
Drop-
after Shawn,
A
hits-
Jason Giambi like swing
Yeah.
with that chair to Triple H.
it was worth noting.
And you can hear a fan go, "How does it feel, Hunter?" when he does that.
oh my god, I forgot about that. They were so into it.
It's
Oh,
the best.
yeah.
It was totally the best.
And then Shawn just gets his second win.
Yeah, he does. And then it leads to a great moment on the outside. They go to the outside.
Speaking of comedic moments,
Speaking of comedic moments, they get to the Spanish announce table, and Shawn Michaels takes off Hugo Savinage's boot.
it was right there.
It was right. I mean, what
just-
else are you gonna hit him with?
He just pulls his shoe off and whacks
So
him in the head with
he
it.
hits Triple H with it, and King goes, "That's a heel for a heel, isn't it?"
But I love he doesn't give Hugo his shoe back. He just throws it on the floor. Like, give the man his shoe back. Then he takes his belt and he whips Triple H with it. And then we said, oh, God, what did JR say? Oh, return to sender by HBK.
Yeah.
Because he hits him so hard with the belt.
So now it's Triple H's turn to really start to hurt Triple H, right? So Shawn gets a bulldog onto the steps, a
But hang
running
on,
bulldog
he
onto
runs
the steps,
completely
Yeah.
around the ring. I love that moment so much.
and then we at this point we've seen a trash can lid, we've seen the sledgehammer, we've seen chairs, we've seen steps now being used. Shawn Michaels pulls up the ring apron, and with the best smirk on his face,
I have it written down here.
pulls out the ladder.
I have it written down. Then comes the ladder.
Yeah. He pulls out the ladder. He at first doesn't use it because Triple H does a baseball slide and knocks Shawn down.
Well, you have to think about the significance of Shawn Michaels grabbing a ladder.
Yep.
Well, they even said the innovator of the ladder match.
Exactly. These are people who are remembering. We got to remember, we know Shawn Michaels largely based on his 2002 to 2007, 2008 run.
Right.
But the people who are watching this match have never seen any of those matches. They haven't
No.
happened yet.
They
What
remember
they remember
WrestleMania
is
10.
WrestleMania 10.
They remember Survivor Series 92. They remember Shawn Michaels in ladder matches.
Exactly. So this is a big, big deal.
And they love it, right? But they have to wait, which is what I love about it. Like they don't get the initial payoff from the ladder because
Teaser.
Yes, because Shawn doesn't get to use it. But what Shawn does get to do is a superplex to Triple H off the top rope. But here's what I love about it is that earlier in the match, Triple H went for a superplex on Shawn, and the commentators played up how devastating it would be. But then when Shawn hits one, he is brilliant because when he lands, he turns his back to where he doesn't land on his back when he does it. He lands on his side.
He does
I've
the
never seen anyone do that before.
Ever.
Well, he takes it the way that Ric Flair takes a back body drop.
Right.
He kind of
He
lands
does.
on it. He lands
He
on his
does.
ass. He doesn't land on his back.
When have you ever seen a superplex tell a story? I mean,
Not like that.
It was incredible.
Superplex is usually all right, we're both going to lay down for 10 seconds before we get back into this. That doesn't happen because they're up pretty quick. And then we have this beautiful float over sequence by Shawn that turns into like a backslide. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, how does he do that? I mean, I know how like Rey Mysterio and Eddie do it, but how does Shawn Michaels do that?
How does he do that after not being in a ring for 4 years?
Right. I
Because
mean,
that's something that you forget watching this match is, this guy hasn't done this in 4 years. How is he doing this?
Like, he's the best.
And there are a couple of, we talked about the cringy ouch moments on Shawn Michaels' side. There's one moment that I audibly went, oh, shit. Whenever Shawn Michaels flings Triple H outside of the ring, it's like a clothesline outside of the ring.
And Triple H's knee lands on the ladder.
His shin. His shin smashes the ladder.
I forgot about that.
And
Yeah.
you know that's not a spot.
No,
that's
the
just
ladder
a
was just
little-
still there by the ring.
It's almost the equivalent of stubbing your toe.
Right.
That's we forgot the ladder was right there, and that really hurt my leg.
It hurt to watch.
Good point.
Because you
I forgot
notice
about
he
that.
is noticeably he's not selling his leg, but he is legitimately trying not to put weight on his right leg.
Well,
after
thank
that.
God it wasn't like plywood or something, or he would have had like a piece of his leg cut off.
Ugh.
Speaking of wood, we get a table right soon thereafter. We get a table from Shawn. He puts it on the entrance side of the ring, and Paul.
I love this because what's he gonna do? And then Shawn grabs a fire extinguisher. He smacks Triple H onto the table with the fire extinguisher. I love this so much. I thought he was gonna spray. No, wax him, and the
It just flies out.
he punches him with the fire extinguisher onto the table. I love that because it just seems so real.
Shawn, at this point, he gets onto the top turnbuckle. You see he's about to dive onto Triple H, and you're thinking this guy is out of his mind. And then he shows us that he's out of his mind. He does sort of like that crazy, gesture with his hands, and he turns in midair and splashes onto Triple H through the table.
It's beautiful.
It is, and that's King says something about I wish it was a Falls Count Anywhere match because this match would be over right now because they're out of the ring.
We go back in the ring, and then Shawn climbs the ladder.
Climbs the ladder.
And he points to the crowd, and he says, "I love each and every one of you," and does an elbow drop from the top of the ladder. And I jumped out of my seat.
And the crowd is going berserk. Shawn Michaels gets up. He goes into the corner. He's ready to tune up the band. And that crowd I don't think they could have been louder. They were losing it.
Fever pitch. It's beautiful.
JR is at a 10 on commentary, number one with the bullet, how good of a song, Sweet Chin Music, right? And and Shawn goes for Sweet Chin Music.
Triple H catches his leg.
And it's blocked. And you're like, oh no.
He spins him around for the pedigree. And then Shawn does a double leg takedown. Jackknife cover. 1, 2, 3.
And it's exactly what it needs to be.
I agree. I feel like if he had ended on a Sweet Chin Music, it wouldn't have had that effect on me.
Well, if he would have ended it with a Sweet Chin Music, we wouldn't have gotten what happens after the pinfall.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, right, as we go into this. If what happens after the bell doesn't happen, is this match on our list?
Oh, absolutely, it's on there. But I don't think it would be as high as we're going to put it if we don't get this aftermath.
I think if what happens after the bell doesn't happen, this match is absolutely still on the list. I think if what happens after the bell doesn't happen, we may not get another Triple H Shawn Michaels match.
Agreed.
So,
within seconds of winning the match, Triple H hits Shawn in the back with a sledgehammer, and then he hits him in the back of the head with it.
And it's probably one of, if not the most difficult things for me to have seen as, a young teen, just trying to enjoy myself watching
I'm just watching
some
my
pro
hero
wrestling.
come back to the ring.
It was absolutely heartbreaking. And
I see what you did there.
You don't see heartbreak. But you don't see people. You don't see Triple H hit people in the head with sledgehammers very often.
And then
not that way. That was
like that.
execution style.
And then he does a crotch chop.
JR in the background. I refuse to believe that after the most courageous victory any of us have ever seen, that son of a bitch used the hammer.
JR is an absolute dread for this whole segment.
I was too, because I forgot this happened.
It was surprising. It was brutal. And you thought you hated Triple H during the match? Oh, man. That guy needed security to get out of that building.
That was the beginning of the Evolution style Triple H.
Oh, yeah.
That was the Triple H who went on to hold the World Heavyweight Championship for 2 years.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And I don't know if we can get this in, to the podcast as we're going fairly long. But there's a few lines right at the end that JR says when Shawn is on a stretcher and Triple H is walking up the ramp and he is smiling. He says, JR says a couple of things. He says, he's going to rot in hell for what he's done tonight. And then he says, does he have no conscience? Does he have no heart? Do you have no soul? You son of a bitch. Do you realize what you've just done?
I'm so glad you said that, because that's kind of what I was screaming in my head. I wasn't shouting at my television screen, but that's what was going through my head. Like, how can you do that? How? And I remembered, this is Triple H. There's a reason why we hated him so much.
It's absolutely brutal. So, with that in mind, how the hell we rank this?
Oh, well, let's do favorite moments first.
Oh,
I feel like we need to do favorite moments first to give us
Okay.
a second to think about the ranking,
Yeah.
right? So favorite moments. I'll be totally honest with you. In the moment, it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me ever in my lifetime. But looking back, those sledgehammers at the end and JR on commentary, I mean, that I just so vividly, and it's one of my favorite moments because of the raw, real emotion that you can't fake.
Oh, I agree. He's just, his voice is cracking because he's so angry and he's screaming. And just, for me though, my favorite moment, and I the reason why I was like knocking the table, I have to say this part, just the fire extinguisher onto the chair and then the crossbody off the top of the table. That's my favorite moment because people didn't do that in WWE.
Right.
I mean, Jeff Hardy would do that, but that's Jeff Hardy. Main event guys did not take risks like that.
No.
Especially main event guys that just came back from 4 years off with a broken back.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just amazing.
My favorite moment of the match. Eye for an eye, a heel for a heel.
All right, Chris Harris.
Seriously though, the commentary throughout the whole match. I can't pick one moment of this match.
No,
You know,
it's
like
too good.
I won't. I refuse to pick one moment from this match. But if I had to pick one element of the match that made it my favorite, it's the commentary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we discussed it at length. And the fact is that there were several things that we didn't bring up. You know, if you go watch this match, you just have to watch it. You have to listen to the commentary because it is incredible.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So, Landon, I'm going to remember this week. Thank you for reminding me. We're going to rank this match.
If we must.
If we must. This will always be one of my favorite matches of all time.
Actually, I just want to say real quick,
Dustin?
give my
Yes.
opinion.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. So Dustin, our producer,
We want to hear it.
has an opinion.
All right, so it's actually about the rank, not just about the match itself, but about
Yeah.
the rank
Okay.
itself.
Yeah.
I don't normally talk on this podcast very much, but I feel like this has a contender to be like number one. Listening to you guys talk about this match, I've never like wanted to watch a match as much. Like even what was it, Bret Michaels and not Bret Michaels, Bret Hart and
Stone
No,
Cold.
Steve
yeah.
Austin. Yeah,
Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels will happen at some point in the show.
Really?
Was that a shot at love? Which one was Bret Michaels?
Bret Michaels?
Yeah.
Bret Michaels.
Oh, no. It's
It was
God. Was he poisoned?
Rock of Love. That's
Rock
what that
of
show
Love.
was.
Yeah.
called.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
it's so bad.
All right, coming in for the comedy at the end.
I love it. But I'm so glad you said that because I think it showed, last week it was very, very clear that Landon was very passionate about Lita, and he should have been. And it was something that I was very passionate about as well. But you're really seeing the passion that we had for Shawn Michaels. And that's why we wanted to do sort of a Shawn Michaels appreciation to kind of get our first Shawn Michaels match in here. But it goes back to what we said at the beginning, where this is his first match back in over 1,600 days, but he's about to give us another full-length Hall of Fame career.
He gives us another 8 years.
And for me, it has to be number one.
I'm so happy you said that because I agree with you 100%.
The podcast
I
is
was
over.
prepared to get into an argument about why this is better than Austin and Hart. I love you, sir.
So Spencer's face right now is priceless. I know I said Austin and Hart would be really difficult to top, and it is really difficult to top. But I don't remember the last time that I have gone back and rewatched a match and legitimately cried and legitimately screamed and legitimately jumped up and down, even though I knew everything that was going to happen. The story is one that transcends time. You know, we've talked about how Trish and Lita is synonymous with great rivalries, but I think the most iconic rivalry of all time may be Triple H Shawn Michaels.
I think so too. Even if it did go on longer than it needed to, the first 3 months of that rivalry, we got classic after classic after classic. And this is the first of what, like 4 classic matches they have together?
It's certainly my personal favorite rivalry of all time.
When we rank, we take into account the build, the rivalry, the crowd, the storytelling, the commentary, obviously the wrestling ability of the guys in there. And if we're taking all of that into account and we look at all the matches that we have up so far, this is number 1.
Yeah, this ticks every single box you just listed.
That's funny because like listening to you guys talk, this has been my definitely my favorite to listen to as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
should have had goosebumps. So.
I mean, the whole time I had chills talking about it the whole time. Landon, number 1. Paul,
Number 1.
number 1. I do fear that we are a little bit creatures of the moment, and so while we're discussing these matches, I think that we might inflate their ranking just because we are just talking about them. But make no mistake about it. This is number 1.
Oh, man, I was sweating bullets.
This is number 1 as of where we stand right now, strictly because based off of our criteria, it doesn't miss a beat. It doesn't miss any one of those things from start to finish. It's as close to perfect in my mind as we get until WrestleMania 25. And and I just super excited that we were able to cover this match. I could go watch it again right now.
I could too.
I could totally
Let's
go
do
watch
it.
it.
Yeah,
Man,
let's go do that
like
right
we'll go
now.
watch it, and you know we'll stay recording so that this turns into a 7-hour show. So that sounds good to me.
Well, I think we only need 30 more minutes to make it a 7-hour show, huh? No, really. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. If you're listening to this, we really appreciate it. Thank you for voting on this match.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate every single person. If there's anything we missed about this match, please let us know at Last Match Cast on Twitter and also lastmatchstanding at gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any match recommendations. We'd love to cover the matches you consider the greatest of all time as well.
And also, don't forget to rank in your own way at ranker.com/lastmatchstanding. After every week we put up the newest episode and you guys can rank it and you can all decide what your number 1 is.
Perfect. I'm really curious if that ranker list is going to look a whole lot different than what our list looks like at the end of things.
It's going to be interesting.
I imagine it might change.
It might.
That's going to be really fun for me. But Dustin, thank you for making us sound way better than we ever would. So I appreciate that. Like Landon said, follow us on all the social media. We are there, and we are happy to interact with you because that's what we're here for, because this is, in fact, for you. I can't wait to see what we rank next week. It's going to be hard to top the emotion that we just went through, but I am here for it, and I'm very excited about it because, as always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And I'm Dustin.
And this is Last Match Standing.